What's going on, everybody? In this tutorial today, I'm going to be going through uh, a pretty. It's not one of the most common things that'll go wrong with the PS1, but it is something that will happen. And this is uh, if your PS1 doesn't turn on, it just won't power on. Now, I will say that there are a couple of reasons why this can happen. This isn't the only way to fix this, but I would say 90% of the time, if your console won't power on, it's because you have a busted capacitor. Now, for those of you that don't know what a capacitor is, it's these. Alright? It's these cylinder things right here that have the flat tops. And there's one here, and there's a couple right around here. Usually what happens when they bust, if you look closely, these are real flat on the top. They're perfectly going up and down straight. They don't really bulge out or anything. What happens when these bust is most of the time it'll be the top, and the top will bulge out, and most of the time you'll see this little gooey liquid coming out of it. If you see gooey, kind of like a weird pasty brownish reddish type of stuff coming out of the top of one of these, it is definitely busted, and that's definitely why it won't power on. So that's the first thing you want to look at. Now, it doesn't always ooze and stuff. If it's kind of bulging out this way, that can mean it's busted as well. Or if it's just kind of got a bulge here on the top, but with no gooey liquid coming out, that can also be a busted capacitor. But if you see any gooey stuff coming out of the top of it, then it is definitely a bad capacitor. In order to fix this, you do have to replace it, and you do have to have a decent soldering iron, and you can't just have like a really cheap $5, $10 one that you can buy at any store anywhere, because it just won't get hot enough, because the solder on the bottom of these are very stout. So it does have to have a higher temperature to melt it. Now, none of these are busted. I'm just going to show you how to kind of desolder one and put it back in there. And that's pretty much the whole point. I'm also going to try to show you there is a positive and a negative. Like, see if I can get a better pointer here instead of my big fat fingers. These two solder joints right here are to a capacitor. Now, right next to it, right here, see if I can get you to see it. It looks kind of blurry, so you might not be able to see it. But right here, there's a plus symbol. And so that's where the plus goes in when you put in the new one. Now, the way to tell the difference is when you get a new replacement capacitor, of the two prongs that are there, the longer prong is always going to be the positive side. So that's always the one you want to put near the positive. And luckily, 90% of the time, near any capacitor on the bottom of it, it will have a plus sign right next to wherever the plus is, the positive. So just pay attention to that, and you'll be fine. Now, if you reverse it, you could cause more damage. You could bust more capacitors. You can maybe fry the whole thing. I don't think that's as likely. But yeah. And of course, when you do this, you do not want to have it plugged in or anything. Now, this is just the power board, obviously. If you're not sure how to just get to the power board, I've got another tutorial that will show you how to get to it. I will put a link down in the bottom so you can watch that tutorial and get to the power board first. Alright. Now, I'm going to go ahead and it'll be easier for me to show you with this big one. I'm going to just desolder it, and then I'm going to put a new one in, even though it's not busted. I'm just going to do it kind of to show you. Alright, so the first thing is we've got to get our soldering iron, and we need our solder, because you will need to put solder on the soldering iron first. Alright, put an ample amount of solder on there, and you're just going to douse the bottom of it. I mean, you're just going to cover it, and while you're doing that, you're also going to be wiggling it from the other side. Here, let me see if I can move this back a little bit. Alright. Now, also, I'm going to be hitting these two right here, and the little plus sign is right here next to this first one. So what you want to do is you're just getting your solder and you're getting it in there, and that's going to help loosen everything up, the old solder first. And then the best way that I can tell you to do it is you're going to wiggle it from the bottom while you've got it touching both, going back and forth between both connections. And then eventually, see, like right now it's already starting to slide out. Be careful not to do that, but that's it right there. And now it's out. Alright? So, we're going to pretend like, voila, this is a different new capacitor, the replacement. And when you're looking, always look for this right here. That's going to tell you exactly what kind of capacitor you need. This one is 200 volts, 120 UF. So that's exactly what you need to replace it with. Now, same concept as putting it when we're putting it back in, except it's a little bit trickier to kind of get it started. In fact, that's a little bent, so let me unbend this real quick. Now what you want to do is first you're going to get it started in the holes before you turn it over. And then you're just going to do the same thing as you were before. You're going to be hitting one side and putting some pressure on it as you've got the soldering iron on it, which will help get it started. Alright, I got it mostly started here, but this is definitely the tricky part because you've got to keep it lined up and you've got to keep it hot enough to actually start pushing it through here, which is not as easy as you might think. Alright. Now I've got it started and I'm just kind of going back and forth and pushing on one side a little bit and then going back and pushing on the other side. Now, that's in there pretty good. Alright, there's a little bit of distance between the actual board and the bottom, but not a whole lot. Now I'm going back, I've bridged a few connections here, so I'm going to go back and clean this up. Like I've hit some of this stuff over here. Start cleaning all this solder off. Because if you try to run it with them bridge connections, you'll still have a lot of problems. You pretty much got it cleared up now, but I can be kind of meticulous, so I'm going to just make it look a little bit better. Alright. That's not too bad. Alright, so that's how you do it. Now if you do this and it didn't work, you've either A, you put the positive on the wrong side and you need to flip it back around, or B, you've got more capacitors that are busted, which is the case a lot of times. Rarely do you only have to replace one capacitor. Or it could be something else. It could be something on the motherboard is just fried, or some of the inner workings in here could be fried and it could just be screwed. You may have to get a new power board or something, which we do sell on the Tinker Mods website if you didn't know that. Or we will be soon. I don't think the PS1 repair parts are up yet, but I know that that's coming very soon. So anyways, that's how you do that, and I hope this tutorial helped you guys out.